saw that suicide bomber, and I didn't see a weapon. I had to make a quick decision at that point, a legal quick decision of do I pull the trigger or do I go towards them? If I can't see a weapon and this guy would have been a civilian and I would pull the trigger, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I'd be in Leavenworth right now.
Hello, fellow leaders, and welcome to the Military Leader Podcast, bringing you conversations with today's most successful leaders. I am Andrew Stedman, very thankful that you are here to join me today. And in case you have not heard this podcast before, my intent is that you finish it feeling like you were part of something meaningful, that you listen to the leaders featured here and walk away a better leader yourself, maybe even a better person, and then bring those lessons into your own life. And you can find this episode and many others at themilitaryleader.com, as well as blog posts, insight, resources about everything leader development. And then while you're there, I encourage you to subscribe and to receive the latest updates. And you'll find out when the blog posts and other podcast episodes come out in the future. In the last episode, you heard from the most recent commander of the National Training Center and current commanding general of the 1st Cavalry Division, Major General Jeffrey Broadwater. And then in this episode, you'll hear my conversation with infantryman and Medal of Honor recipient, Captain Florent Groberg. Captain Groberg was born in France, then became a naturalized U.S. citizen in 2001. Commissioned as an infantry second lieutenant out of OCS in 2008, he was assigned to 4th Brigade, 4th Infantry Division at Fort Carson, deploying twice to Afghanistan, first as a platoon leader in 2009, and then again as the brigade commander's personal security detachment commander in 2012. Then on a dismounted patrol on August 8, 2012, 2 suicide bombers attacked his element as they made their way to a key leader engagement at the Kunar governor's compound in Asadabad, Afghanistan. And then as Flo explains in this interview, an enemy combatant walked up to the coalition patrol with the intent to detonate a suicide vest full of ball bearings. But as the threat emerged, Captain Groberg moved to interdict him, identified the suicide vest, and threw the combatant to the ground. Sadly, the resulting detonation killed 4 members of the patrol and injured 16, but triggered the early detonation of a second suicide bomber. When I heard the account of Flo's actions, my first thought was that he did what all soldiers hope to do in combat, what we rehearse in our minds and train for. He immediately and boldly reacted to the enemy threat and did everything he possibly could do to mitigate it. Without question, his actions saved lives, including his own. During the Medal of Honor ceremony in 2015, President Obama said this about Captain Groberg. On his very worst day, he managed to summon his very best. That's the nature of courage, not being unafraid, but confronting fear and danger and performing in a selfless fashion. He showed his guts, he showed his training, how he would put it all on the line for his teammates. That's an American we can all be grateful for. It's tough to say it better than that. And without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Captain Florent Groberg. Hello, fellow leaders. Welcome to the Military Leader Podcast. I am honored today to be joined by retired Army Captain and Medal of Honor recipient, Florent Groberg. Flo, I'd like to thank you for taking the time today to chat and really appreciate you being here to share your lessons and insight.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be on this podcast, and I just look forward to having a awesome conversation and learn a little bit from you as well.
So I'd like to start off and ask you about your childhood in France and how you came to live and serve in the United States. Can you elaborate on that journey and what it meant to you to become an American citizen and soldier?
Yes, you bring up a good point in terms of my background. I was born in France. I was born just outside of Paris and lived in that area and in Paris for the first 11 years of my life. I never met my father. And my mom was, raised me for the first couple of years by herself. But then we got lucky. Actually, she met this guy named Larry, who's from Gary, Indiana. He was working overseas at the time for Motorola, and he fell in love with my mom. They dated for a long time, got married, and eventually, when I was about 11 years old, he asked my mother and myself if we wanted to move to the United States. Yeah, for me, as a young man, it was exciting. The idea of moving to America was, a country that I'd been to a few times up to visit with him. But, it's just everything's bigger. Everything seems so more exciting, sports and all that good stuff. So it was definitely something that, I was excited about. But once I got here, obviously things were a little bit different. I didn't speak English, so that was the transition was a little bit more difficult. But you're young, and the best part about being young is that you learn quick, especially a language. And so I was immersed into our American society, and I fell in love with it. But really, a couple things happened in my childhood that changed my perspective on my life and really guided me towards the military. First, my uncle being killed by the terrorist organization called the GIA in Algeria in 1996, in February 1996. That was that's probably what the number one impactful moment in my history, in my life history that really guided me towards wanting to be in the service. He was fighting the terrorist organization in the Algerian army. He had an opportunity to be trained in Fort Bragg at some point with the special forces, and during the ceasefire, he was shot, beheaded, dismembered, put in a box, and sent back to my family. So that was a very traumatic event for our entire family, which changed my perspective on a lot of different things. But at a young age, really taught me the fact that I was no longer sheltered from this world, right? And now I've experienced it was direct, but not directly, right? I didn't witness it, but trauma and terror from evil acts, and so I wanted to be a part of the solution. Now, let's be honest, I was 13, and I think I was 12 years old going on 13, and so my response was more of an anger response than a logical, response, and so that obviously stayed with me for a little bit of time, but the dissipated event over the course of the following years with more of a reasoning that allowed me to really process the fact that I wanted to join the military, to go and be part of the solution and fight. Then you fast forward a couple more years, and this time I'm naturalized as a U.S. citizen in February 2001. 5 months later, 9/11 happens, and you're just, actually a few months more, 7 months later, 9/11 happens, and that was the catalyst in regards to my need and my want and my internal requirement to go out there and serve in the military.
Oh, yeah.
I honestly felt that, if this country is going to come here and adopt me and give me the right to call myself an American, I got to go earn it. No one told me that become a naturalized U.S. citizen that you have to go serve your country. But from where I come from, my family, every male is serving the military, whether it's in France, whether it's the United States, whether it's in Algeria, it's just in our blood. And so there was no way for me that I wasn't going to be a part of the team that is going to go out there and eradicate that evil from the world, specifically because the same evil that terrorized my family in 1986 it was now terrorizing the rest of the world. It's not like they hadn't been doing it, right? They've been doing it, but it got even more personal again.
Oh yeah, it became a formative experience. I mean, that was probably defining for you. I mean, how old were you then when your uncle was killed?
I was 12.
12. Oh, wow, I'm definitely old enough to comprehend and to understand what was happening.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's one of those really impactful, formative years where such events potentially can really dictate and or play a massive impact in your foundation as a human being. So yeah, I wanted to be, and when I was 18 and 9/11 happens, you're kind of like, well, this is not going away. This is a reality in terms of like how massive this problem is. So when you have a problem and you have an opportunity to be part of the solution, you put your life on the line if you need to, but you go be that solution. That's the way I was thinking.
Yeah.
So that's what led me to the U.S. Army.
Yeah. Okay. So when you came over here, then did you know that you eventually wanted to join the Army? Was that always kind of a dream of yours?
Not when I was 11, right? I mean, I grew up and thinking like I wanted to be an FBI guy. I wanted to be a professional soccer player, and then I wanted to join the FBI.
Right.
I think I watched Silence of the Lambs when I was like 11, and I was like, I want to go be that guy that finds these people. I've never been like normal like that, right? Like I want to be joining the FBI because I wanted to go find serial killers and people that hurt children. That was not like I want to be a firefighter. It was just like, people were like, oh, well, you want to join the FBI? That sounds cute. But why the FBI? Because I want to go find serial killers. Like, what? You're 11 years old. What do you know about serial killers?
Right. And so you learn English and then join the military, and then were able to get your citizenship while you were, or was it right before you joined? Is that right?
Yeah, no, I got my citizenship. So my dad is American, so that was easy for me to get my citizenship.
Oh, yeah.
You just have to go through a process. Yeah. My mom, though, had to go through the typical, questionnaire and test and stuff. So as soon as she became a U.S. citizen and actually I became a citizen before her, to be honest with you.
Oh, okay.
As soon as the adoption paperwork was finalized, it's a big process, man. You got to get lawyers and stuff. It's not as easy as people think.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I was adopted by my dad, I automatically became a U.S. citizen because I was under the age of 18.
I mean, that's an amazing path, and there are so many soldiers, that end up coming, born elsewhere and then come into the States and serve. And I think it's just an admirable thing to come here and it's really the spirit of America, right? Just to come here and love this country and adopt this cultural way of life, and then go on to serve is an incredible statement.
I mean, is there something more honorable as an immigrant that you can do? I think the fact that you get, one of my best friends from high school, Florent Groberg, he is currently still serving in the United States Army right now. He's from Zimbabwe, and he didn't speak great English, and he came in and he saw an opportunity to really earn his way through life,
mm-hmm.
To gain a better understanding of our history and to be part of history. And to him, and just like myself, it made absolutely complete sense to be a part of our armed forces. There's no better way to represent your country and learn about your country and feel pride for your country, in my personal opinion, than to go out there and wear the uniform with so much history and go fight alongside your brothers and sisters from the United States, of America, and others from around the world who want to be a part of this. Of this country. And so,
I didn't think about this really before either, but the cross section of America that you get in the military, you kind of get to know more of America, if that makes sense, by being in the military than if you just went and localized maybe in some community and stayed there.
Think about this, like in our military, right? We have white, black, we have Asians, we have Hispanics, we have Muslims, we have Christians, we have Jews, Hindus. We have gay, straight. We have, people from Compton to people from Massachusetts, right? We have people from Iowa, Fort Lauderdale. You have people who have, college degrees and masters. You have people who have, a GED, and all this in one group, potentially. Where else?
Yeah, exactly. In one platoon. Yeah.
Group.
Yeah.
And then best part, not only that, but the best part is where can you find such a diverse group, put them all together, and have them jail as one of the best fighting forces in the world, and yet with all these differences, political affiliations differences as well, Republican, Democrat, Green Party, whatever, Independent, they're willing to die for each other,
mm-hmm.
and willing to become best friends for life.
Yeah.
Tell me,
that's amazing.
There's no other organization or business in the world that can bring people together the way the military does. Why? Because the military has incredible ability to strip you down to your core and teach you about something that is greater than yourself, about teamwork, about respect, about integrity, about selfless service. And that is why it is super important for people to truly generalize the fact that the military is not just about going to war, but it's about the whole aspect of creating an individual that is willing to truly sacrifice for something greater than himself,
mm-hmm.
and for the greater good of his environment. And so whether you're serving, whether a veteran or an active duty or a veteran is currently still serving or has served, this is an aspect that is transferable and that is incredibly priceless to me for our nation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of transferable there, I would like for you to elaborate on kind of what you're doing right now at Boeing these days, and then since you got out of the Army, and then how it compares to your time in the Army. What have you been able to bring forward into Boeing?
I think the work ethic, our organizational processes, understanding of teamwork first, accountability, integrity, all these things that we learn in our military career, the things that, that allow you to succeed. Ranger School is a great example. Ranger School, one of the big things in Ranger School is when you don't have a leadership position and you're out there, taking a knee and running security for your team, are you falling asleep? When no one's watching, are you going through your bag and trying to eat a little bit of your MRE?
Mm-hmm.
Are you putting around in the chamber like you're supposed to in your 240 when you're walking, right? So in case you get hit, you can automatically, return fire.
Mm-hmm.
Are you ditching ammo and things like that, right? Where you have integrity, no one's watching, and you know what? 90% of the time, you're not going to get caught. And when you get caught, then you live with the consequences of it, which more than likely means you're recycled, or you will be recycled because your peers are going to, make sure to let you know how they feel about you trying to cut corners. Why? Because we don't do that.
Yeah.
We do not cut corners. We walk the path. And whether the path is the hardest path in the world, that is what we do, because that is what we're training for, is what we're designed to do. And that is the way we win. That is why we win in combat around the world, is because we are willing to honestly follow the path and follow the hard course.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you transfer that over to the civilian sector, there's a lot of those intangibles that you can bring over. Things like being on time, being in a proper uniform. That is really an important thing. Starting meetings on time, make sure the meetings go on time. Mm-hmm. The other piece is, understanding the teamwork. Like last time I checked, everything that I did in the military wasn't about me. Nothing in the military is about me. Everything is about the mission and its people. And so that's a mindset that's very difficult to really replicate at times in corporate America for some folks, because they're looking at their life, careers, right? It's like, man, if I don't get this good report out, then I'm gonna get fired, or if I don't do this, or
mm-hmm.
some people, we call them spotlighters, right? They just love the spotlight, but that's not how we're designed. Yeah. We're designed to go out there and say, what are we trying to accomplish, and what can I do to help? Where part can I play? And then when we're done with that part, it's like, what else can I do to support? Anything else that I can volunteer or I can help you with? And that's just a mentality that we have. Team and mission first. It's something that's unbelievably powerful in corporate America, or as well as our educational sectors, mm-hmm. because you don't. It's not that people don't do it. A lot of people do it, but it doesn't come as natural to them at times as it does for us. Because for us, it's been instilled in us, and that's something that that is something you bring up, you bring out, and then you bring up, and then you transfer over, and it's gonna allow you to succeed early on. Now, the rest. These are things that have allowed me to succeed. Today my job as chief of staff encompasses multiple projects. Mm-hmm. Every day I deal with the people aspect, I deal with the financial aspect, I deal with the program management aspect, I deal with the supplier aspect. I went into a world of manufacturing where I had no background in. Right, I'm not an engineer. I was a criminal justice and psychology major in mm-hmm. Maryland. My master's in intelligence policy. Right, and management and intelligence policy, not in engineering or structural engineers. I don't know how to build airplane. I couldn't tell you when I came into the role. I couldn't tell you the difference between a 787, 737, 747, 67, 777X, all this stuff, right? But they didn't hire me because they wanted my subject matter expertise on airplanes and structures engineering. They hired me because they knew that I could run an operating rhythm. I could put a team together of strong folks with a mindset of winning together and a mindset of making sure it's mission first and team first over, financial security or where can I get me next, right? Stepping mm-hmm. stone type mindset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They brought me
skills.
in.
Yeah,
exactly.
All the skills you mentioned before. And I think that soldiers leaving the Army can really have confidence when they're stepping out into other sectors. I think a lot of times we look at our MOS and say, well, I really can't do anything but infantry stuff. I don't know anything else but being an engineer or a maintenance tech. But you really do bring a lot more to the table just by serving than I think a lot of people realize.
Oh, you got to bury that mindset. We got to get radical on this kind of stuff, man. People need to go out there and say, bury that mindset. It's about the character. It's about the experiences. It's about being able to operate in an austere environment with confidence and trust. It's about being able to be a decision maker. It's about accountability. These are things that we learn all the time in military, whether in garrison or in combat. We are been taught to be decision makers, whether you're a private or a general. Mm-hmm. And that's something that's incredibly powerful. Now, we're also adaptable, right? And we also live in a world where overcoming adversity is like AKA crisis management. is a daily norm, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so these are things like right now what we're going through in my company, where we've been in a great, the biggest and most serious, crisis in the history of the aerospace industry that we're living through. A lot of our leaders are doing an exceptional job, but it helps to have a mindset of like, well, I've been in combat, I've been in positions where like, the decision that I make will dictate whether or not we or as a team come home or not. And so you kind of get that perspective and you try to remember your mindset, which was, I trust my people around me. I have confidence in them. I believe in my training, and I'm going to trust myself that I am ready to make those decisions. And I'm going to live with the actions and the accountability of my decision-making process. So which means that I'm going to make a decision. That is probably the hardest thing that I've seen in corporate America for people to do. That is to make a decision and live with the accountability behind it.
To pull the trigger, yeah.
Pull the trigger, and that's what we do. We pull the trigger, and we do it with, a systematic mindset type of process that allows us to truly feel comfortable with it, but really allows us to try to make the right decision, which is, we've been training for it, and we are committed to the mission, and we in times when it comes to a split-second decision, you go out there and you make that decision, and then you just hope that's the right decision. Same thing with business, right? You have to be willing to go out there and look at the big picture, but also look at the close quarter, firefight that you're in, and go through that door. And without, thinking too much about it, trust your training, trust your experience, and trust that you have the right people around you that are going to back you up, and go make the right decision, the legal right decision, right? And that's, to me, represents 2012, right?
Yeah.
And when I saw that suicide bomber, and I didn't see a weapon, I had to make a quick decision at that point, a legal quick decision of, do I pull the trigger or do I go towards him? If I can't see a weapon and this guy would have been a civilian and I would pull the trigger, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I'd be in Leavenworth right now.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was thinking the same thing as you're talking about the training and making the quick decision there, because that's exactly it. I mean, you were faced with a situation that many of us visualize in our head when we think about performing in combat, and we train with soldiers, and that we talk about, and then when it was upon you there, you had a split second to do that. So I if you don't mind, let's just go back to August of 2012 there, and you were a newly promoted captain, right? And the personal security detachment for commander for 4th Brigade, 4th Infantry Division, deployed to Kunar, Afghanistan. And it was morning of 8 August, and you were on foot patrol in Asadabad to bring this coalition of Afghan army leaders over to the governor's compound for an engagement. 28 personnel. You had 2 brigade commanders, 2 battalion commanders, brigade command sergeant major, battalion command sergeant major, and a battalion commander, along with a whole host of soldiers. And then on the way to the compound, you had 2 suicide bombers attack your patrol, injuring 16, and then tragically killing Command Sergeant Major Kevin Griffin, Army Major Thomas Kennedy, Air Force Major Walter Gray, and then USAID Foreign Service Officer Ragai Abdel Fattah. It was a tragic event, and I really appreciate you talking about it today. But the outcome would have been worse, and had you not been able to interdict that first suicide bomber and trigger the premature detonation of the second. And those actions earned you the Medal of Honor, and which you received at the White House in 2015, which is where you and I met. If you don't mind, just giving us a little bit of sense of the little bit of the detail about what happened there, and then describing that reaction that you mentioned a second ago, the split second decision, and kind of what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, so to me, August 8, 2012 was a pure definition of what can go right and can go wrong in our military service. And so for all the folks listening, one thing I've learned a long time ago is the idea of respect. respect your peers, respect your subordinates, respect your leaders, respect everyone around you. You never know who you're going to meet again. And it's funny because I've had interactions with in the military years ago. That's basic training or now and or throughout my career. I run into them at conferences, at meetings, in my company. So you never know who you're going to see and how they're going to impact your life in the future. So if you can't find a reason to respect people, some odd reason, think about how that could potentially impact you in the future. So figure a way, respect people, but also look at the process and understand that you have a job and you have to look at the big picture too. And you got to make logical, good decisions. So when I called the day before that on August 7th, right? When I called Cop Fayez and I talked to a major, yes, at the time I was still a first lieutenant. I was getting promoted. Actually, I got promoted to captain officially on August 8th, so the day of the attack. And I asked you to, for a 15-man escort, which, by the way, was standard, and I got every single time I ever called because, here's the brigade commander coming, and you tell me that you're going to walk the route 15 minutes prior, and you'll clear it. And so you can't give me the folks. And then when I repeat my request, you tell me to F off because I'm a lieutenant and I shouldn't be taking my boss's rank. Now, you're missing the boat here. That is wrong leadership. That is irresponsible. That is rude. And that's a failure in the whole scheme of things. I still thought, hey, we're all deployed, so this guy's probably fired up and he'll come to his senses and realize that 2 brigade commanders are coming. I think it was 3 battalion commanders, and a heck of a host of leaders coming to the security meeting. You might want to be at the combat outpost to receive them. I've never, in my entire military career, saw a captain or a major completely, dismiss the idea of being there to receive a brigade commander. Or a battalion. It just doesn't make sense. It's just like inviting someone to inviting the CEO of your company to your home for dinner, and then you're not there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
When you arrive, and you don't show up. Right. You're like, I'll just meet you. I'll meet you in 20 minutes. It's just not even a good comparison, but that's an example. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And so when we landed, and he wasn't there, and he took the entire security element with him. That was unsettling. But what do we do in the military? You adjust, you adapt.
Figure it out, make it happen. Yeah.
You figure it out, you drive on.
Yeah.
Why are we so special? No matter how bad the situation looks. So, we went out there and we walked that route. We changed things around. I brought some Afghan National Army. I put them up front just because I didn't, we were too many green on blues at the time. So I wanted eyes on. I switched people in order of march, and I put my platoon sergeant up front, Sergeant Brian Brink, to control the pace of our walk because I knew that the Colonel Mingus liked to walk fast, but he would never go in front of us, so he always allowed us to dictate the pace. And I put myself at the front of the diamond. I wanted better eyes on, and I Command Sergeant Major Griffin, the brigade Command Sergeant Major, wanted to be rear security. I tried to fight him on it a little bit, but he told me, "Hey, I'm this most senior war guy in this patrol. Pretty sure I know how to handle myself, and we need rear security."
Right.
So I felt really comfortable with him being rear security because, hell, he's right. He's a badass, and I trust him just as much as I trust anyone else. Actually, I was really excited to have him in the back because I knew, I had the best to cover our rear, which is amazing. And then we walked right into it. Right, the enemy motto that year, Connie Network, was spectacular attacks, and they probably saw a bunch of officers. It's really not that hard to figure out that it's a bunch of officers. Especially an Afghan general who walks like he's a god amongst other people at times. And even though Haitula was a good guy, I really, really, really liked him. He was a really good guy, a good leader. But they walk around like they're generals, and so we're an easy target, identifiable. And they came at us right with the 2 motorcycles. I got to praise the Afghan National Army I know people give him a lot of crap at times, and I fought with some really good ones. I fought with some incredibly terrible ones, and I fought with some borderline, criminals. I'm sure that they were terrible people, but those guys really did an unbelievable job of probably diffusing a lot of the threat out there. He raised the point men, raised his rifle, started screaming Dari and forced the motorcycles to drop, and the guy started to run away. He by himself, by the way, to this day. I wonder what happened to him. I saw him chase.
So they saw it right away.
Yeah. Around the corner, he saw it. But it was still enough time for one of the suicide bombers to come out of a structure to our left and get really close to him. You got to remember, it's not big, right? You remember Afghanistan.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like, it's not like a New York City massive street. It's a one way. We're about to cross a bridge, so you have it's not a fatal tunnel, but it's pretty darn close to it, right? And they planned it right, and they were patient, and they really took advantage of the opportunity. We didn't have security to protect us, so they got real close.
Yeah.
I had 6 guys, and really 8 total to protect, a massive element of VIPs. And when I saw him, he was walking backwards parallel to us. He did 180-degree turn and another 90-degree turn towards us. I couldn't see a weapon, right? I mean, he's in his man jams and stuff, but I couldn't see a weapon. So in my head, the only thinking process I went through is a moment like, what do you do? You don't think. You do your job.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, I knew what to do in firefights, just like my team knew what to do in firefight, because we trained so often. Well, we visualize things. But even though we did train for a suicide bomber at GRTC, it's one of those things where you're never truly prepared to know what you're going to do. Suicide bomber. And to be honest with you, I'm actually very happy that I didn't have time to truly think about it, and I just did what my instincts and training guided me to do, which is close on the threat. Right. And the faster you close on a threat, the faster you get there, the faster you eliminate the threat, the less negative impact it's going to have. To you and the team.
You make contact, early and if quick if you can, but you didn't even see, like you said, you didn't see a weapon. This is just a feeling, a hunch. These guys, he's not walking like a normal civilian does, and at the very least, you move to investigate quickly.
Yeah, it's what I mean. You're not stupid, right? You saw diversion. Obviously, it's one. Every spidey senses in your body and are kicked in at this point. You've been I've been deployed before. I've been in firefights before. I've been under threat. You just know it's everything here is telling you there's something wrong going on. This guy in front of me is more than likely a really bad guy, and he's an enemy, and I have to get rid of him. And so because I couldn't see a weapon, my instincts were, man, let me, he's close. So I'm like, let's go. Like, I got it. I'm going to get on him, and I'm going to beat the heck out of him, right? And so I got to him, and I screamed, he's nothing, and so I hit him with my rifle, and that's when I ran my rifle. I'm like, yeah, this dude's he's wearing something. I just didn't know what exactly. And so my mindset was, let me, really take him down. And I wanted to get my hands on him, and I got both my hands on his suicide vest, and that's when I was like, shit, okay, he's got a suicide vest. Now, the next part of the thinking process is to continue doing your job. And I didn't sit there and think, okay, all right, so here I am with this guy, we're dancing, and I'm holding a suicide vest, which means that I'm going to die right now. Instead, my thinking process was like, damn, that's a threat, and I have all these people behind me that we're supposed to protect, that I'm supposed to be a part of the protection team, so I got to get him away from everyone as quickly as possible, as far away as possible. And so I wanted to just get him away, and I threw him as far as I could. Sergeant Mahoney came in, and he followed me behind, and as the guy was falling, Mahoney kind of pushed, helped me push him down even further faster, and the guy landed on his chest, and he detonated.
Yeah. How many steps, just to get a frame of reference there, like how many steps or, maybe 1 second, 2 seconds of pushing him back? I mean, how long were you guys in contact with him before he detonated?
So, I mean, the whole process was about 8 seconds, in my opinion. That's why I wrote that book, 8 Seconds of Courage, because it happens so quick. And that's the thing about, this, right? It's just combat, there's long, drawn out firefights, and then there's the, quick, change your entire life moments where from the moment I saw him, and I mean, I didn't wait. It's not like I stood there and looked at him, right? And as soon as I saw him, I went towards him, right? Because he was coming towards us.
Mm-hmm.
Sprinted. So, and all this is just like sprint, hit. I'm screaming at him, sprint, hit, grab, throw,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But in your head, it's slowed down.
Mm-hmm. Right.
All this is very slow, but it lasted a couple seconds, and then everything went black. But the crazy part about all this is the reality that we face in combat, and that's one that we take home and we struggle with at times. Is that you're not in control of the outcomes. You're not in control of the outcomes of where the bullet's going to bounce and where it's going to hit. Mm. You're not in control of where ball bearing's going to go. The fact that he detonated at my feet and I got thrown 20, 30 feet and I lived, and the fact that Command Sergeant Griffin, Major Gray, Major Kennedy, and Reggae, who were way far away from him, got the brunt of the ball bearings, were killed in action. It's unbelievably, scary and sad and devastating, but it's rule of law of combat and war. Nothing's good about war, and it's a dirty business. Sometimes war is necessary, as the Spartans used to say, right? To find your true grit and get rid of evil.
In a second, I want to ask you about the training that you guys did leading up to that day and how it might have affected that. But I mentioned that you did what we all kind of would hope that every soldier would do, right? Perform his duty in a complex, dynamic situation, and confront the threat and eliminate it. And President Obama recognized that during the ceremony. He said this about you, which is on the Army website, highlighting that day and you and your team's actions there. But he said this: on his very worst day, he managed to summon his very best. That's the nature of courage, not being unafraid, but confronting fear and danger and performing in a selfless fashion. He showed his guts. He showed his training, how he would put it all together on the line for his teammates. That's an American we can all be grateful for. I think those words just brilliantly summarize, what that meant. That actions meant for the team, and really for soldiers who are looking to do the same thing there one day. But how had the training that you guys had done to prepare, for that mission, for your role as PSD there? Do you think that training was effective in responding to the attack?
100%, absolutely 100%. I mean, the repetitiveness of training, right, where we all want to, complain about it, but we we reacted and worked on movements, on how to take care of a VIP in case of a firefight, an IED, VBIT, all that stuff over our time in Fort Carson. Mm-hmm. But GRTC was really, really big for us. I thought because we ran all sorts of scenarios, and guess what? They ran a suicide bomber scenario, and we failed.
Okay,
right? It was one of those KLEs, and I mean the scenario was ridiculous, but. We got invited by a local elder, and who was friendly, but he wanted to talk about these, about the situation around, and then of course, like, suicide bomber comes into the middle of the meeting and just kills everyone. And it was a lesson about, not trusting everyone, but also being, respectful to their setting and things like that. So, we learned a massive lesson, right, about how we deal with folks who are, not part of the circle, locals, mm-hmm. not part of the circle. Mm-hmm. And how do we identify folks who are not part of the circle, and what kind of threat they can become, and the fact that, the reality of a suicide bomber is there. That role, that mission, that was a really, really uncomfortable day at GRTC. Because this, right? This as what you're doing now. To get the brigade commander in a situation where he's killed, and guess what? Command Sergeant was killed in that training, right?
Was he?
They identified as, KIA.
Yeah.
That's the ripple effect that goes throughout the brigade. Be like, oh man, today the brigade commander got hit, right, at GRTC. Geronimo got him, and
yeah, wow.
So but it was honestly, we, in hindsight, at the end, it was a scenario so ridiculous. There's nothing we could have done, right?
Right.
It was
right. Well, that was the whole point. To put you in that
whole
situation so that you could, you can evaluate what to do, what you could have done, and then reframe and refocus that for combat. I mean, that's exactly why they do it. Yeah.
So the funny thing about that scenario was the fact that before we went on that patrol, I told the leadership, I was like, I don't think we should do this mission. The threat's too high. But, it was like, we're still going to do it. We're not going to do it, right? We're going to run through the scenario.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have done, that was my recommendation. I was like, no, we're going into, we know that this elder is friendly, but we're talking about him dealing with a situation of a lot of bad guys in the area, and to come into a key leader engagement with zero intel on the situation, enemy situation around us. It was just made for disaster, and of course, disaster happened. But that was a really good opportunity for us to truly understand our processes and truly understand our TTPs, and so. It was amazing. You learn in failure, and we learned a big lesson. And then we really took that lesson to heart, and it allowed us to be better prepared, better planners, better communicators, and to really work with the commanders, right, and as well as the command sergeant majors on what we expect them to do and how we react to things, and that made our life a lot easier. Now, in Afghanistan, on that day. It's what happened. We learned through our training how to adjust on the go, live, and everyone from Brink, Balrama, Ochart, Secor, Mahoney, O'Brien, everyone played a role in saving, the remainder of the lives of the team. And so it's not people are like, oh yeah, you saved lives. I'm like, no, everyone played a role. Everyone. Ochart did exactly what I told him. He grabbed Mingus and started driving. As soon as he saw me maneuver towards the bomber, he grabbed the command sergeant major, like I told him. I mean, command sergeant major, the brigade commander, like I told him to, away from the threat. Think about that.
Yeah.
It's just we all reacted the way we're supposed to react, and so it took me a long time to truly appreciate that. After I got through my survivor's guilt,
right.
But it's one of the proudest moments of my life is the fact that. Every one of my teammates did exactly what they were supposed to on that day because they followed the training, they trusted themselves, they weren't scared, they weren't deer in headlight in a bad situation. Instead, they were warriors. So that's something that I'm always going to be grateful for, always appreciate, I'll never forget.
Yeah. What you said a second ago about evaluating the risk of the mission there is a good point about, staying in tune to the risk profile and whether or not a certain, mission is worth it or not. I had a buddy of mine who was in Afghanistan as a company commander and was told to clear up through a route that and up to a town that they hadn't, no coalition had been to, in at least a year, and so it was going to be, just packed with IEDs. They knew that, and he told his commander, "Okay, it's going to take me about 6 weeks to get there because I'm not going to just drive up this road. Like we're going to clear it deliberately, inch by inch, because I'm not putting soldiers at risk, unnecessary risk, just so we can drive up here and say we went there." So, being able to like you said, hey, this is. We have a threat that's clear. It may not be worth it to do this mission. Like that's a leader, risk profile adjustment there to stay in tune, tuned into, throughout the course of, training and combat.
Absolutely.
Yeah. After the event happens and the team continues to respond and evacuate and you found yourself routed through Germany and then back to the States there. How were you able to process that event in the days and weeks afterward?
That was terrible. Survivor's guilt, and then the problem is you mix in all the drugs and not being able to move. You're in a hospital bed and you're not yourself. It was just a recipe for disaster. I had a lot of. I was very angry at myself. I tried to replay the scenario and over to find different course of actions. Then I blame myself. It wasn't healthy. It was very tough, and that's something that I know a lot of folks go through in these type of situations where most importantly, friends get killed, and I think that's the hardest part of combat. Honestly, I mean, personally for me, it was never about taking the enemy's life. I never had a bad dream about it. I've never even thought twice about it. I thought that was just part of the deal, and it was, whether or not he went or my guys and I went, and so I can live with those consequences. And I've never lost a minute or a second of sleep over any combat. I know because we did it right, and we did it with integrity and respect, and we did it legally. Mm-hmm. But when you lose a friend, that's what hits home. That's the difficult part.
Yeah. Was there any type of particular perspective or notion or belief that you eventually kind of held on to get you through that phase?
It really took someone that went through maybe not something similar but something different. But in this case, this guy went through something way worse, in my opinion, and that was Travis Mills, quadruple amputee. Mm-hmm. He really rewired me and gave me an opportunity to look at what happened and really digest it in a way where I should be proud of my team. I should honor our fallen comrades instead of feeling sorry for them, that they made a choice to serve this nation with honor. And they were warriors. And now me feeling sorry for myself is disrespectful to them in a way of, not honoring their commitment to our nation. He's like, instead, why don't you go out there and honor them by talking about them, being their voice, also supporting their families, and standing tall and showcase that when we get knocked down as Americans, we get bred back up and we get strong from it. I thought it was just unbelievable. He didn't say in those specific words, but that's how I perceived it, and it really changed my life in 15 minutes.
Oh, wow. I mean, how important that is for people who've gone through that to speak in the lives of others. I mean, that's amazing that he had an impact on you like that. If you don't mind, I'd like to ask you about the medal, because I think it's something that a lot of people are who don't have a lot of personal either experience with or get to hear people, the recipients talk about it that often. But how was that process for you when you heard that you were nominated for it, and then going through that process there by receiving it, and then afterward, how it's changed your life since then?
Yeah, I mean, I was a civilian. I knew I had been put in for the Distinguished Service Cross at some point. Mm-hmm. I figured the Army did what it does best at times, which is lose paperwork. So,
right.
And I wasn't thinking about it, but I was working for the government at the time, and it was kind of really interesting because I really didn't understand the concept of the new reality I was going to be facing. Mm-hmm. I just know that I was really uncomfortable with it. The fact that now I was going to be a Medal of Honor recipient, and I really didn't think about Medal of Honor recipients ever in my time of service. Really didn't. I never met one, and it was almost a myth, right?
Right.
Like a mythical. Right. Oh, Audie Murphy, Doolittle, right? Uh-huh. These folks you're talking about, you're like, yeah, that's great. There's stories and movies about them, but I've never met one. I'll never, I don't want to be in their society or a group, because that means that something really bad's happened, more than likely I'm dead. Or most importantly, and worse, is my friends are dead.
Yeah.
So when I got the call from the President of the United States, President Obama, and he obviously let me know that I'll be receiving the medal and the honor behind it and the responsibility behind it. It took me a long time to really digest it, I've never been excited about it. I wasn't even humbled at first by it. I was just kind of like, what the hell is going on? Like, why the Medal of Honor? From what? For what? But then the way I went through it and processed it, because I was feeling really uncomfortable and I really didn't want it. I talked to the Gold Star families, and they were all super excited about it because they were proud of me, proud of the team, but most importantly, they knew that their husbands and would be and father would never be forgotten, and that the world will know about August 8, 2012, about the men and women who wear this uniform and unfortunately lose their lives at times for us. And so they all came to the White House. I told them to come to the White House. President Obama did an awesome job and a really honorable job of asking them to stand up, recognizing the team. And on that stage, I felt shame because you never join the military to be recognized. And so everything we do in the military is as a team. So when you're standing alone and your team's there on a stage, it's uncomfortable. And I was like the president said, it was my worst day of my life. And here I am being deemed a hero, and people are celebrating that day celebrating me. So it felt real uncomfortable. But again, the Gold Star families, it was about them. And so I made a promise to myself on that day, and right before that day, really. But every time I talk about the medal, every time I talk about that day, I'll talk about Griffin, Gray, Kennedy, and Reggae. And then since then, it's a humbling award, obviously, with incredibly great responsibility. And it's a massive platform to do some good. Some of the guys do good. Some don't do anything because they just want to go live their lives, and they're entitled to do so. They just want to go in peace and be with their families, do their job, and some probably have other do other stuff with it. But to me, I just wanted to make sure that I earn it, just like I want to make sure that I earn the right to take a breath every day, because I'm here and I know quite a few of my friends are not. So you have to be a positive influence in your own environment, your world around you. And so it hasn't really changed anything with the medal. I was planning on living my life that way, with honor, and to do stuff greater than just for myself, around my community, around my family, around my friends, around our military, our nation, the world. And so this just goes it sort of goes hand in hand. And now, of course, you have a medal, you become a subject matter expert in everything. Mm-hmm. I probably can tell you what the weather's going to be like tomorrow in California, right? Because the medal is know-it-all, according to people. We get invited to a bunch of ridiculous things and that we shouldn't even be invited to. And just because you're an icon to some folks, and it's quite ridiculous, which is a dangerous thing. That's why you have to live with, just like you when you wear a uniform, you represent every service member and the past. So you have to have honor, and that's the same thing. So,
yeah, absolutely.
And lastly, it keeps me connected to the military too. Mm-hmm. It's just unbelievable, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, I'll tell you from the seeing what you've what's out there online and the speeches you've given, and just knowing you. I mean, you do a great job of making sure that people know what that medal represents, and then it's not something that you consider yours by any stretch of the imagination. It's the team, it's the soldiers, it's the families, as you said. So I mean that really does come through, and I think it's important for everyone to see and realize. So just before we close here, just like to give you an opportunity to talk to the junior leaders out there. We have soldiers, NCOs, officers who listen to the podcast here. Some preparing for training, preparing for combat here. So what's your takeaway lesson that you would speak to the junior leaders out there who are preparing for potentially that moment that you had back in 2012?
I would say the first thing to our junior officers, the number one thing that I did as a young lieutenant, especially when I got in combat, because my path was a little bit different. Actually, not different than many. At the time, when you joined the military, you went to Iraq or Afghanistan. So, mm-hmm. That was definitely a ticket out there. But I went in as a new lieutenant and in the middle of a combat deployment. And the number one thing that I could do and think of doing, and of course my dad gave me a little bit of guidance behind it as a former NCO, was to go find my most senior NCO, my platoon sergeant, when I became platoon leader, and talk to him man to man and asking him for guidance and mentorship while mm-hmm. still staying strong. Mm-hmm. So my point is, it's okay to be vulnerable, but it's a calculated vulnerability. It's one where you're showing your true grit as a leader in the essence of, I'm here to lead, but also follow, right? We talk about this, follow me while I lead, right? And all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And as a leader, you have to be willing to listen and learn from everyone. Everyone. Think about this. I came to a team that, as a leader of that team, where I had the least amount of experience out of every single one.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of them.
Mm-hmm.
How crazy is that? And I'm supposed to go out there and let them know, like, this is what we're going to do in this patrol. No. So I went in and I told my students, like, hey, I'm taking my pride, my ego, my rank, I'm putting it to the side. I'm talking to you man to man, asking you for your guidance and mentorship and support to be the right effective leader for this platoon. My number one mission is to take care of our men, that way we accomplish the mission. Right? That's it. And I put myself out there, and I think that created this incredible positive bond between the two of us. Well, he also, of course, famously told me, well, I need you to shut up for the next 7 days. We're going to go on patrol, watch the way we react to contact, the way we communicate internally, learn everything you can about the area of operation, all the elders and the villages you're going to own, all the target reference points, talk to the man, but don't get too close to him, and so on and so on, all their recommendations. I faced a second very difficult moment in my very short time on the ground at the time, which was this guy. I just asked him to help me, and he gave me his first guidance: is shut up for 7 days. How is that going to go over with the soldiers? So the way you do it is you're honest and transparent.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that crazy? Oh my gosh, honesty and transparency. Even in the military, that is a way to truly break down barriers and eliminate, the water cooler talk, and also to gain respect. So we went and talked to the team. We told them exactly what we're going to do. Hey, I'm coming in, new lieutenant. Obviously, I don't have the experience that you all do, but I'm here to lead. So I'm here to also follow. I'm also here to understand how you work as a team. So for, of course, the next 7 days, our Sergeant First Class Corey Staley will be taking lead on some of the patrols. I will be out there as an observer, but I'll also make recommendations. And then after 7 days, we'll do an official turnover, the reins to me, and we'll go from there. Always, but remember, it's all about the team. It's always about working together. It's always about accomplishing everything together. So I will take input and recommendations and all that stuff. Now, and I think the team appreciated it. Mm-hmm. Now, did everything go well all the time? No. I had jackasses on my team, and I handled them. Yeah. And I handled them, and I told them, some of them, like the same thing that I told you earlier, is, respect everyone, because you never know how that person's going to impact you. And I think one specific soldier was a big jackass. We had a pretty big conversation together about it. And I told him, I was like, one day I might be the one that's going to save your ass, and whether it's here or back in garrison. And that conversation didn't last too long. It took a couple weeks later, and he was facing a pretty negative situation on the legal side of the house. Something he'd done prior in garrison, and I was one of his top advocates, just in support. Sort of save his career, but in the end, he still had to get out at some point. But it could have been a lot worse. So it's about treat everyone with respect. But we had an unbelievably powerful, positive tour together as a unit. Yeah. And because I was willing to, as a leader, to take my pride, my rank, and my ego, put to the side, and look at the big picture, and I was willing to put myself on the chopping block with the world vulnerable, because I knew that it was honestly how I felt, and that was the best way I could think of gaining some respect, but also really truly gaining that help that I needed. Now, on the flip side, it goes, my platoon sergeant helped me. He, I was lieutenant number 1,190 million, right, that he's had to deal with over his long career. And instead of dismissing me, instead of being like, just another guy, and like, we'll listen to him, but we really won't listen to him, we'll do whatever the hell we want. He didn't do that. He had respect and he had honor, and he really worked with me, and he's the reason why I was successful in my military career. It wasn't all my training. It's because I had a strong non-commissioned officer that took me under his wing, that worked with me, that trusted me, that followed me, also guided me, and gave me the confidence early on in my young military career that I could do this. And I think that's incredibly important for our NCOs to understand that they play a bigger role than they think on the leadership setting of a young officer, but also overall that people, your specialists, your privates are going to watch you and learn from you and how you treat. So if you're the guy that's going to go out there and talk shit about, your lieutenant, or always complain about a new lieutenant, even if the lieutenant is completely incompetent, you're setting a bad example, and you're creating this chain reaction that's going to be negative and for the whole team. But if you're willing to go out there and teach and learn, and if that lieutenant's not wanting to listen, then you go out there and you keep doing the right thing, and you talk to your teams, you explain to your teams the importance of leading the right way, and then you're going to be good. So to me, it's about being it's about a tactical way of being vulnerable that shows respect to your team and shows that you're committed to them. It's never been but if you show up and you think it's all about you, I know it all. Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, that's I got to tell you, that's a powerful perspective that's applicable at every level. I mean, not just as a new officer coming in, but every position you take, and you have to have the adaptability to figure out the new job, because we switch every year or two, right, in a new assignment, and we have new teams that we fall in on, and so that ability to say, hey, I don't have all the answers. I need to learn from you, and I need some help. I have confidence that I'll get there, but I'd appreciate your help. That opens the door, right? Like that, like you said, and also shows that you respect their knowledge and experience, and and their opinion, and shows that you're a human being. Because soldiering and this is all about it's all about people, because there are people everywhere, and people are how we get it done here, and so you're just one of them. I mean, that's a fantastic perspective there, because there's a lot of pressure to think that the new lieutenant coming in has got to know everything. And I mean, I've been there for sure. I had the same thing. I had a platoon sergeant who pulled me aside and said, "Okay, let's have the real chat here." And before we go to Afghanistan, that was in 2002, and it saved me for sure. I owe a lot of credit to Chuck McManus for bringing me along that path, because it stuck with me for years, as have the conversations I've had with NCOs just throughout their career, because they serve that role at every level, and have that coaching mindset.
It's unbelievable how powerful it is, right? I mean, it could have gone so many different ways, and I've seen decent, I see borderline lieutenants where if they're taken under the wing of a strong NCO, they'll succeed. But if they're dismissed by that NCO and that team, they failed. Yeah. And I've seen it where they've been dismissed and they were borderline, and and their career lasted for 4 years. They're out. And I've seen it where today they're majors, right? And they're doing some really awesome things in the military. And I'm not saying I would have been a bad lieutenant or a good lieutenant no matter what. I think I had a mindset of like, I will do whatever the hell it takes to make sure that we accomplish the mission, but I take care of my man. I always had that motto, so I think I would have been all right. But man, I don't think I would have ever reached the heights of my leadership potential unless it was through the support of Staley, honestly. Yeah. In my military career, at least not as quick, right? So he completely, I owe him so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Flo, we'll let you go here. But I want to thank you for taking the time here to chat and to share your experiences and lessons and insight. I know, as you said, that was the hardest day of your life, but I know that folks listening here appreciate you revisiting it here, so we can draw the experience and lessons out of it that have already become a reality for soldiers and leaders out there, and will continue to become a reality. And so, I just want to say that I personally admire you for what you were able to do with the team, and then how you performed on that day to mitigate the risk in the only way that was possible at the time, and to do what every soldier wants to do, which is close with and destroy the enemy. And so I look up to you, man, and I really appreciate you taking the time here to talk with us.
Well, you know what? I think First of all, I appreciate that. I mean, it's humbling, and coming from you specifically. But thank you for everything you're doing. Thank you for everything you've done, and everything you're going to continue doing for the team. And this is an awesome opportunity here to be a part of this podcast with you and share some thoughts. And I just think it's so cool that in today's day and age, we have so many different opportunities to have a conversation, to learn from others, others' experiences, and to formulate an opinion based on different perspectives. So, I look forward to listening to some of your other podcasts and learning myself. And anything you need, how to reach me.
All right, absolutely. All right, well, thank you very much, Flo, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Take care.
Several times now I've heard Flo recount the day of that attack, and it still amazes me that he did what he did in the moment that mattered. But those moments happen routinely in combat, don't they? Soldiers do the right thing all the time at crucial moments. Sometimes it happens in the midst of a tragic situation, and at other times it just changes the situation just enough to prevent something worse. Either way, more moments are coming, which is why we train to be ready for them. I want to thank you for listening today, and if you want to check out other episodes, head over to themilitaryleader.com and be sure to subscribe when you get there so you find out when the next one comes out. Remember, the views expressed here do not represent the Department of Defense or the U.S. government in any way. Thanks for listening, and lead well.